thanks for tuning in to Relationship Entertainment TV. I'm your host, Felicia Dortch, with the news you can use and the ish you don't want to miss. I hope everyone has had a fabulous weekend. I swear the weekend is going way too fast. I really think that with this election, they should agree to let us only work Tuesday through Thursday so we can have Friday through Monday off every single week. Anyway, so we're getting closer and closer to election day, and I want to continue to push the fact that we need to get out and vote. Last week I talked about making the excuses of not wanting to stand in the lines or not wanting to get up early or take off from work or whatever excuse that you can come up with. Just to recap, we talked about how we would go stand in line for the 7 for $35 at Victoria's Secret, or for this new iPhone 12 that's coming out. I'm pretty sure that I'm gonna see people camping out with their tents for that phone. Again, with tennis shoes, the same issue applies. So those are all ridiculous reasons to wait, and I understand it's your money, you do what you want to do, but this right here with voting is very, very, very important. Our young voters that of age that are able to vote, they're really getting out there and voting. I've talked to a few people, because everyone knows that I'm on a platform about voting and making sure that people are voting. And one of the best stories that I've heard thus far was one of my classmates' mother has literally never voted in her entire life because she felt like her vote didn't matter. She is currently in maybe close to her 60s, and my classmate has finally convinced her to go out and vote. So this is her first time voting, so we definitely applaud her. I'm super excited that she was able to convince her that her vote does matter. I'm also getting some feedback about the amount of time it takes to vote, and we did talk about this last Thursday, that some places it is really taking a long time to stand in the line to vote. I haven't heard many issues as to people being harassed before going to vote, or they get there and they're having issues with licensure or the proper documentation to vote. I have yet to hear those stories, but if you have had one of those stories, I would love to talk about it on one of my segments, and you definitely can reach out to me or just comment on this post, and I'll reach out to you and we can connect it, and I'll get your story and we can talk about it. And it's not that I just want to broadcast the negatives, I also want to broadcast the positives, but real life is real life. If your experience is not so great, I want to talk about it, and I want people to understand that what's going on during this time of voting. If it was a great experience, like the story that I gave you a minute ago where my classmate finally got her mother to vote after many, many years. You have to think about, if she's close to 60, she's had several opportunities to vote. So this is definitely a glorious occasion. Just to reiterate, if you're not sure where you're supposed to go and vote, it's an easy keyword search. You can just Google voting polls, put your zip code, and it's going to give you numerous places that you can go to vote. But make sure that you have valid identification. They do not take expired license. So find out what you need to bring to the polls. That way you're not standing in line forever and then to find out that you can't vote, even if you're at the correct place. Okay. And also, I don't believe at all areas where they're voting, they have someone walking up checking documentation. So that's something that I'm definitely going to probably find out who I need to write into and ask them, as people are standing in line, is there somebody available that can just kind of go through the line and check to make sure that you have the right documentation? Because I don't mind standing in a line for something this important, but I'd be very upset if I stood in line only to find out I was in the wrong line or at the wrong polls or with the wrong documentation that I need to be able to vote. And we have to take responsibility for ourselves. For me, I definitely would check before I go to a polling site to make sure that I am at the right zone, because some areas are super huge and they have certain areas that you can go to or certain areas that you need to be in to be able to vote. So you want to make sure that you check those things and make sure that you're zoned to the right place. according to your address. And I can only speak for Texas. I know some areas in Houston, you have to check and see if you're able to vote in that area, or if you're able to go to any area at all. So you want to definitely check that. I do recall in Tennessee that when I was living there and it was during an election time, I had to go to a specific place that was zoned for my address and my zip code in that area. So just to give an example, I lived in Smyrna. I couldn't go to Nashville to vote. I had to vote in the county of Smyrna, which is Rutherford County. So Harris County is pretty huge, but just make sure you're checking to make sure that you are in the right area, the right place, and have the right documentation. So what I wanted to do tonight is to kind of give a count. It doesn't really say, I really was interested in finding one that was broken down by race, and I'm going to continue to research that. And not that I'm not trying to say that I have to speak on it that way, but I am curious to know how it breaks down, and just to make sure that my brothers and sisters, my African Americans, are getting out there and voting. So it isn't to say anything versus any race. It's just I'm curious to know what the numbers are and would love to report on them. But right now, what we're looking at, according to the Financial Times, Biden versus Trump, it shows Joe Biden at 279 and Trump right now at 125. So when I looked at the breakdown for the electoral votes, right now Trump is securing Montana, Indiana, Missouri, South Carolina, and Texas. So for Montana, he would need the three electoral votes: Indiana 11, Missouri 10, South Carolina's 9, Texas at 38. So he's doing pretty good with those percentage points or average poll margin. And for Joe Biden right now, it looks like he has Georgia, Ohio, Idaho, Maine, North Carolina, Florida, Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, looks like Minnesota, and Colorado. Okay, so if we're looking at it in percentage wise right now, according to the Finance Times, it says that Joe Biden is at 51.6% and Trump is at 42.5%. And this has been since early voting, okay? So that's pretty good numbers right there. That also tells me that people are actually getting out and voting. That's the numbers I was actually looking for. I wanted to kind of see the breakdown around states to see how many people are out there doing the early voting. How many people are millennials? I'm just curious to find out those numbers. So I'm gonna work really hard to try to find those numbers for you and report on them on Thursday. But the positive out of this entire situation, regardless to one vote versus the other, is that people are taking this seriously and they are getting out to vote. One of the biggest things that's hurting the election or hurting Trump for the election is his response to coronavirus. As Americans, we feel like he didn't, and this is my personal opinion, that he did not handle coronavirus as well. There's speculation that he was aware of this virus back in November of last year. So we are literally coming up on almost a year of being in a pandemic. And this was something that he actually knew about and could have prepared us a little bit better than what he did. We lost a lot of people. I looked at the news today and we were in the 700,000s of people that have been infected. That is definitely a lot of people. So the states that we have, the leaning states, and right now it shows Joe Biden, in the blue color and Trump in the red color. And I'm just going to give you a breakdown of what it's showing me. So right now, Joe Biden has Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. And then Donald Trump has South Carolina and Missouri. Biden has Michigan and Minnesota. And then Trump, Indiana, Montana, Alaska, and Kansas. And then Biden, Colorado, and Nebraska. Okay, so those are the leaning states. So it looks like it's going to be pretty tough because there are some concerns about Biden and the way he handled police reform, and also the way he handled the African Americans dealing with crime and dealing with jail sentences. some things that he said during his earlier years in politics. So people are starting to dig up a lot of things about both parties, which again, I said this before, it makes it really difficult to try to formulate an opinion. And as I do in all of my videos, I always like to share a personal experience. And I was talking to my twins today, and they were asking me about who I was voting for, which I'll keep that to myself. But I spoke to them and I explained to them that it did not matter to me which person it was if they had an agenda that was going to benefit us. So there's always going to be something that you don't like about a person, or something that you feel like they could have handled well. So I'm going to tell you exactly what I told them. I said I would vote for Trump if I understood his platform, if I knew what he was standing for was going to help me in my life and me as an African American. The same as I would vote for Joe Biden if his platform, his politics, his agenda was going to affect me or to help me as an African American. So it's not about all the, of course I consider all the things that they've done. I consider all the things that was said. I do my own research. So it makes it really tough because there are some things in the Republican Party that I understand. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And then there's also some things in the Democratic Party that I understand, and that makes sense. So you really have to take the time and figure out where you fit in and what's going to be best for you and your family. So that's how I presented it to them, because I don't want them to think of I have to, which is something that I grew up thinking, that I have to vote Democrat because I'm African American, or I have to vote Republican because I'm in this tax bracket or this income class. So you really want to take the time to get to know the candidates, find out what they stand for, find out what their platform is. And this goes all the way down, as I keep saying, all the way down to the county level. You want to vote based on your research and how it affects you and your family. Okay? So again, please vote, vote, vote. Get out and vote. Call everybody you know. Check to see have they voted yet. If they haven't, make arrangements for transportation if that's what they need. Make arrangements for babysitting if that's what they need. Ask your employer to let you know what are the policies on voting. As I stated before, with my employer, we're able to take the day off to go do that because they know sometimes it takes a little while. You may have to stand in line. So do whatever you can. This is very important. All my millennials, get out and vote. Do your research. Your voice matters. Our voice matters. Till we meet again, this is Felicia Dortch with the news you can use and the ish you don't want to miss. See you Thursday.